Hello and welcome back to Vox Terra. The show's purpose it is to get us to make the long-term survival of the species the political priority. To help with that, I want to share with you an article from Environmental Health News. Now, Environmental Health News is what I would consider an actual alternative news outlet. It's focused on the environment, and I believe it's credible. I've heard about them on a public radio podcast called Living on Earth. Again, a fairly credible environmental resource. Now, I'd like to contrast that, though, with the corporate-dominated news media, which I believe underreports environmental issues, especially because of all that money at stake. And then worse, though, is what I call the fake alternative news outlets, which say, hey, we're against the big corporations, but really, they're actually putting forth arguments defending the most reckless elements of the business community. Fossil fuel, petrochemical, and just a pollute as you want kind of mentality. And the way they generally do that is by trying to get our attention focused on an other, on maybe a foreigner or another country. And right now we see that happening with China, right? All the media attention is going to get angry about China instead of looking at how our economic system, and I'm sure in China there's a similar dynamic, right? They're looking at, hey, let's get angry at the United States instead of looking at how the consumeristic capitalist system, which is propped up by governments, so it's not even really a free market, is actually sabotaging our health and our environment. We see that happening now with the COVID-19 pandemic. So to that end, I'm going to cite from Environmental Health News an article called Coronavirus, Climate Change, and the Environment. A conversation on COVID-19 with the director of Harvard University's Center of Climate. March 20th, 2020. Pretty recent article. As the planet heats up, animals big and small on land and in the sea are headed to the poles to get out of the heat. So that's really factor one, right? The planet's heating up because of the excessive burning of fossil fuels. And that excessive burning of fossil fuels is happening because of decades of paid-for denial, which is parroted and aped by those what I call, elements of the media, which are sympathetic to them. And they're setting in motion chains of events which will make that heating just kind of take on a life of its own. So right now, though, it's still mainly being set in motion by the excessive burning of fossil fuels. So this heating planet is causing animals and different, to migrate to different locations where they didn't used to. So, for example, Zika, we're seeing mosquitoes, the types of mosquitoes, their range is changing. Okay, point two. So you've got a heating planet. Point two, the main causes of climate change also increase risks of pandemics, according to Environmental Health News article. So one of them is the loss of habitat or deforestation. So deforestation is a climate change driver because the forests, the trees, they retain carbon. They retain all this pollution that we're pumping the earth full of. So you got deforestation not retaining carbon, but it's also a habitat loss. So those animals are on the move, those creatures, insects, animals are on the move because the climate's changing, it's heating up rapidly, and they're also on the move because they're losing their habitat. Two factors, okay? Factor three, large livestock farms can also serve as a source of spillover infections from animals to people. So you've got big agribusiness, big factory farming, and those really horrible conditions, those animals are kept in there. So you've got the factory farming is another aspect, creating these unsanitary conditions for the diseases to breed and spread. So you've got heating planet, habitat loss, factory farming. Third, Environmental Health News points out that air pollution is strongly associated with people's risk of getting pneumonia and other infections. So a study done on SARS, a virus closely related to COVID, found that people who breathed dirtier air were twice as likely to die from the infection. So that's the third pillar there is the dirtier air from burning fossil fuels largely puts us more at risk to diseases. Now, the article goes on to mention how climate change is already facilitating diseases. They cite Lyme's disease. I've mentioned this one before as well. So Lyme's disease now is spread throughout much of North America where it didn't used to previously exist because the winters are not what they used to be. So those colder winters, those consistently cold winters used to kill off a lot of these pest insects like the ticks. Well, now different types of ticks are spreading, and they're bringing with them these diseases. We've seen that as well with mosquitoes here. As the globe warms, mosquitoes will roam beyond their current habitats, shifting the burden of diseases like malaria, dengue fever, chikungunya, and West Nile virus. Researchers forecast different scenarios depending on the extent of climate change. That one I'm getting from an article by Stanford Woods Institute for the Environment, 2019, from stanford.edu. So those are some key points. Heating planet, deforestation, factory farming. And all of those key points implicate fossil fuels, big agribusiness, and then logging, especially like in Brazil, which is expanding under Jair Bolsonaro, who is also friends with Donald Trump. So I hope you found this video helpful to push back against some of the misdirect and help create a greener thinking, which we need for our species to have a long-term shot at survival. It's a foundation. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please subscribe. Please share my videos. Please offer supportive comments, constructive criticism. If people criticize in a polite manner, great. Okay, I don't like being Baghdad. I don't typically insult people. I'm not going to play that game. Anyone can do that. And until next time, and if I do ever set up a donation page, please consider donating. These videos are very time consuming. Until next time, peace be with you.